2 years ago, the headlines were unambiguous. Salesforce was not going to hire any new software engineers in 2025. Klarna had replaced hundreds of customer service workers with AI and was calling it a success. The CEO of a major tech company said AI could already do the work of a mid-level engineer. Google revealed that AI was writing over 25% of its new code. The narrative had a clear direction. The software engineering job market was permanently contracting, and anyone who had not seen it coming was simply not paying attention. Here is what is actually happening in 2026. Companies are rehiring software engineers, not slowly or reluctantly, actively, and in many cases they are going back to the exact people they laid off. It has a name now, boomerang hiring, and the fact that it is happening quietly without press releases or mea culpas is itself the most important part of the story. This is not a reversal of AI's capabilities. AI can still write code faster than any human. That part of the narrative was true. What turned out to be wrong was the assumption that writing code faster was the same thing as building better software. It is not, and companies are now paying the price for confusing the two. To understand what went wrong, you have to understand what the AI coding tools actually changed and what they did not. Tools like GitHub Copilot and its competitors are genuinely useful. They generate boilerplate, speed up debugging, handle repetitive patterns, and compress the time between having an idea and having working code. For a competent engineer who knows exactly what they want to build, AI assistance is a real productivity multiplier. Nobody serious disputes that, but there is a problem embedded in that efficiency that nobody fully anticipated at scale. Faster code generation does not mean less complexity. It means more code, produced more quickly by people who may not fully understand what they are accepting. And the data coming out of production environments in 2025 and 2026 is not flattering. AI-generated code contains up to 1.7 times more bugs than human-written code according to SonarSource's 2026 State of Code report. Maintenance workloads have increased by around 38%, and 96% of developers report that they do not trust AI-generated code without manual review, which means the time saved in generation is being partially clawed back in verification. The deeper problem is what engineers call the ownership gap. When a developer writes code themselves, they understand it. They know why decisions were made, what the edge cases are, how it interacts with adjacent systems. When they accept AI-generated code, that understanding is often absent or shallow at best. At small scale, that is manageable. At the scale of a production system serving millions of users, it becomes a maintenance liability that compounds over time. Think about what that looks like in practice. An engineer uses AI to generate a feature in an afternoon that would have taken 2 days to write by hand. The code works, or appears to, it ships. 6 months later, a different engineer needs to modify it. Nobody fully understands it. The original engineer who accepted the AI output cannot explain the architectural decisions because they never made them consciously. Debugging it takes longer than building it from scratch would have. Multiply that pattern across a code base, across dozens of engineers, across 2 years of AI-assisted development, and you start to see why maintenance costs are climbing even as raw output speeds up. Companies that aggressively automated their engineering functions discovered this the hard way. The short-term savings on headcount were real. The long-term costs in system reliability, debugging time, and architectural drift were also real, and in many cases larger. There is a second layer to this story that goes beyond code quality, and it is about what AI tools are actually good at versus what building software actually requires. AI is excellent at the tasks that used to define junior and mid-level engineering work: writing functions, generating tests, filling in standard patterns. What it can't do is understand why a system was built the way it was, what the business logic behind a particular decision was 3 years ago, how a change in one part of the architecture cascades through a dozen other components, or how to make a judgment call when a product requirement is ambiguous and the stakes are high. That gap between executing a known task and understanding a complex system is where experienced engineers live. And it turns out that gap is much harder to close with AI than anyone expected. A company that laid off its senior engineers to save money and replaced them with AI tools and fewer junior staff discovered that the 30% of problems AI could not handle required 90% of the actual engineering judgment. The edge cases, the production incidents, the architectural decisions that determine whether a system scales or falls over. That is where seniority matters, and that is exactly the cohort that got cut first. Before we go further, if this kind of ground-level analysis on where AI is actually changing business versus where it is not is what you come here for, subscribe now. We cover this every week. The hiring data tells the reversal story clearly, even if nobody is announcing it. Software engineering job openings in the U.S. hit roughly 67,000 in the first quarter of 2026, the highest level since early 2023, up 11% year over year. The boomerang pattern is visible across the industry. Companies that aggressively cut engineering headcount in 2024 and early 2025 are now rebuilding, often recruiting the same people they let go because institutional knowledge is not something you can regenerate quickly. Klarna, which made headlines for replacing human workers with AI, quietly reversed course and began rehiring. Salesforce, which announced it would not hire software engineers, has been hiring software engineers. The rebound is not uniform, and that nuance matters for anyone trying to read the market clearly. Big tech, Amazon, Meta, Atlassian, is still trimming in places. The growth is concentrated in startups and mid-market software companies that are building products, not managing legacy infrastructure. AI-related roles are surging. Job postings for applied AI specialists, ML engineers, and infrastructure roles supporting AI systems are up dramatically. Traditional software engineering roles without AI fluency are tighter. The market has bifurcated, not recovered evenly. There is also a salary dimension that does not get enough coverage. The rebound in job postings has not been matched by a rebound in compensation. Base salaries for software engineers are landing 15 to 25% below their 2022 peaks. The combination of AI tooling, surplus laid-off talent re-entering the market, and increased use of contract arrangements has reset the going rate. Engineers are being hired back, but not necessarily on the same terms they left. The longer-term implication of all this is worth thinking about carefully, because the lesson companies are learning has a specific shape. AI did not make experienced engineers redundant. It made them more expensive to replace than anyone realized. The skills that turn out to be durable, system architecture, complex judgment, cross-functional communication, the ability to review and validate AI output intelligently, are precisely the things that take years of practice to develop and cannot be compressed into a prompt. Junior engineers are still facing a genuinely harder market because the entry-level tasks that used to build those skills over time have been automated. That pipeline problem has not been solved, it has been deferred. What the boomerang hiring wave tells you is that the companies who moved fastest and cut deepest are now rebuilding from a weaker foundation than the companies that cut more carefully. The ones who retained institutional knowledge have a compounding advantage. The ones who hollowed out their engineering teams to hit a short-term cost target are now paying a premium to reconstitute something they had, and paying it in a market where the engineers they want know exactly what happened. Speed was never the bottleneck, understanding was. And as the industry figures that out in production rather than in a press release, the engineers who built deep system knowledge over years of careful work are becoming one of the most valuable and most quietly sought-after assets in the technology economy. There is an important signal embedded in the boomerang pattern for anyone thinking about this from a business strategy lens. When a company rehires the same people it laid off, it is not just filling headcount. It is admitting that the original decision was made on bad assumptions, that AI capability was conflated with AI readiness, and that the cost savings on paper did not survive contact with production reality. The companies that avoided the deepest cuts in the first place that treated their engineering talent as a long-term asset rather than a variable cost are now operating from a stronger position. That is a lesson about how to think about knowledge workers in an AI era that goes well beyond software engineering. Thanks for watching. If this changed how you are thinking about AI, software hiring, and where the real competitive advantage in technology is actually sitting right now, subscribe so you do not miss what comes next.